This is a Model T, and when Ford introduced it back in 1908, it costed $825 and took more than 12 hours to assemble a single vehicle. But in just 6 years, it went on to capture nearly 50% of the entire US market, all thanks to the assembly line.
Back at the plant, Henry Ford tried to figure some way he could bring the cost of his Model T down.
It all started when Henry Ford visited a meatpacking factory during his trip to Chicago. He noticed the workers were stationary and products flowed towards them. He thought, why couldn't this be applied to car manufacturing? So, Ford made it his mission to democratize the automobile. His strategy was to continuously slash prices in efforts to further drive sales. And it worked. The bold short-term sacrifice in profits actually led to a boost in profits over time, as net income rose from $3 million to $25 million in just 5 years. 1913, Ford installs the first assembly line. It was 150 feet long and made out of rope. The man-hours it took to assemble a single vehicle had dropped down to just 3 hours from 12.
One morning, he told a foreman to tie a piece of rope onto a chassis and start pulling it across the floor. As it moved past, each workman put on a different part. It worked, and a revolutionary new principle of mass production was born: the moving assembly line.
It wasn't all smooth sailing though, as Ford began to face high turnover rates amongst his factory workers as they simply didn't enjoy their mundane work for the mediocre pay that they were getting. $2.38 for every 9-hour workday. The company had to hire 963 workers for every 100 it needed to maintain on payroll, and this was becoming a problem for Ford. A new incentive model was needed to motivate the factory workers and scale up production, all while keeping the Model T priced for good value, as demand continued to soar. So, in 1914, Ford announces the $5 per 8-hour workday in addition to a profit-sharing plan, more than doubling workers' salaries, and over 10,000 workers applied the very next day. At the time, many critics and shareholders thought that this decision was reckless and might even risk bankrupting the company. But Ford responded by saying, well, you know, when you pay men well, you can talk to them, recognizing the human element in mass production. His bet paid off, as the happier workforce led to improved productivity and doubling the company's profits from $30 million to $60 million in just 2 years. Ford later said, the payment of $5 a day for an 8-hour day was one of the finest cost-cutting moves we've ever made. Overall, the adoption of the assembly line turned America into an industrial powerhouse. By 1918, half of all cars on the road are now Model Ts. 1925. By now, the price of the Model T had dropped to just $260, down from $825 back in 1908. And 2 years later, the 15 millionth Model T was produced and was a 4-door convertible. To be honest, I didn't even know convertibles existed back then. 1942, Ford uses its assembly line to produce B-24 Liberator bombers for the US during World War II. One of the plants produced a whopping 8,685 bombers. Jesus. The very first use of a moving assembly line for aircraft production. Today, about 16 Ford vehicles are produced every 60 seconds around the world, and some of these assembly lines stretch as long as 8 to 20 miles long. Though Henry Ford didn't invent neither the automobile nor the assembly line, his efforts to democratize the automobile completely transformed this nation's way of life. By offering more mobility and jobs out of these factories, the automobile went from a luxury product for the wealthy to a necessity for the thriving middle class. And yeah, that's it. That is the first car documentary video that I am going to try to experiment with. Let me know what other car-related topics you would like me to do, and let me know what I can improve on. Yeah, like and sub. Thanks for watching. Peace.
As we look back at the world in which Henry Ford lived and worked, we can clearly see how much we owe to those remarkable men who, in every generation, contribute so greatly to human welfare. Our progress is given continuity by men like Henry Ford, men who see the shortcomings and needs of their time and venture forth with courage and enterprise to change their world and make it better for all men.